Well, hey everyone. Thanks for joining me for my week 11 video. And in this week's video, I'm going to be talking with you about paper 3, the paper 3 assignment sheet. Believe it or not, this is our very last major paper in the class. And then the elements of drama. So if you would, let's talk about the elements of drama first, actually, as I think this will give you a bit of grounding for the paper 3 sheet. And if you would follow along with me by clicking on content and then course documents and then the elements of drama, and you'll have to hit that load more tab at the bottom of the page for it to come up. So through the semester, we've looked at the elements of fiction, the elements of poetry, and now in our final unit, the elements of drama. So drama is a story told through action and dialogue by actors who impersonate characters. Duh, right? We all know that. But it has certain conventions, and it requires what Coleridge called, quote, a willing suspension of disbelief. So you and I have to believe that what we're seeing before our eyes on a stage or on a screen is real. We have to be willing to sort of suspend our sense of disbelief and accept that world of the stage or of the screen as being our reality during the time that we're watching that video. We have to accept the fact of impersonation or representation, that these actors are impersonating someone else who is obviously quite different from who they may be in real life. The stage has to be regarded as the actual scene or setting. And then we must accept the conventions of asides. And this one will come back and haunt you on that exam on literary terms. So asides are lines spoken by an actor that are intended to be heard by the audience, but not by the other actors on the stage. So it's like I'm up on the stage and I'm talking to the other characters, and all of a sudden I look at you, the audience, and I say, right? That's an aside. Now, it wouldn't be that obvious, obviously, but that's an aside. And also soliloquies, and that's a character talking when alone on the stage, maybe talking to himself or herself. So think solitary, right? Soliloquy. Now, I don't know if you ever talk to yourself. I talk to myself when I'm driving a lot. And my father used to say, Shug, that's what he called me. It's okay if you talk to yourself, but when you start answering yourself, that's when we really need to be concerned. So far, I don't think I'm answering myself. I do, however, refer to myself as we sometimes. I'll be driving along, man, we really need to get those papers graded when we get home. And I'm like, what? Why do I call myself we? So just try to get that in your head. With asides, that's an actor speaking to the audience, but the other actors on the stage are just kind of oblivious. They're not supposed to hear it. And soliloquies, a character on the stage or on the screen talking alone. And then we need to accept the fact that ordinary people might be speaking in highly poetic language. So if you've ever seen a performance of a Shakespearean play on the stage, you know that people are speaking in a highly elevated, poetic sort of way, and we have to accept that. Also, the idea that actors on the stage will always speak more loudly than is normal. They learn to project their voices when they're stage actors. Now, my daughter was an actor in Los Angeles. She was a child actor, and we lived there for 10 years. And before that, she acted and sang on stage. She did a lot of work in Nashville at Opryland when there were lots of shows there. She performed at the Grand Ole Opry. And so she had learned to be an onstage actress and to project her voice out. So when she got to LA and she was doing television and film, then, she was told, back off, Marissa. You don't need to do that anymore. You're not on the stage. You can just speak in a normal tone of voice. But actors on the stage are trained to project their voices. We also have to expect or accept pardon me, the possibility of what's called in medias res, and that's a Latin term that means into the middle of affairs, and that one will definitely haunt you on the exam on literary terms. So, in medias res refers to a literary technique in which a story begins after the action has already started. And so the explanation of plot and character roles, the importance of the setting, and so on, are left to be revealed via a flashback, or maybe through a character's thoughts, or some dialogue, or a reverse sort of chronology in which the story is told backwards. So you've probably seen that with television programs or films where the film starts out and something's happening and like you don't know what led up to that, what caused that. You're not really sure what's going on at first. Well, that's in medias res. Also, the conventions of drama require a balance between our empathy for the characters and aesthetic distance. So we remember we're viewing art and not life. And then finally, those conventions require that we remember the fact that the reading of drama plays is actually a poor alternative to watching a play in the theater or a film, right, in the theater. And so many of you are like, yes, that's great news. So plays are written obviously with stage directions and things like that, and so it's kind of not quite as exciting as reading a short story or a poem maybe. It's designed and it's written to be performed, right, on the stage or on the screen if it's a film. So reading it is not going to be nearly as interesting to us as actually watching it. And I want you to remember that every time you watch your favorite television show, or every time you watch a movie and you really love it, guess what? That began with writing. That began with someone who was a creative writer who wrote the novel, which was then made into that film, or the screenplay of that film, or the play that you're seeing performed. It all started with writing, my friends. So just like we had elements in fiction and poetry, we have elements of drama, and many of them are the same. So we have plot, what's literally happening in a play or a film. Things to ask yourself about plot include the following. Does the play follow a traditional structure, or is it an example of in medias res? Is it starting kind of in the middle of affairs? What is the function of each act and scene, and how are they related to each other? So often scenes will sort of build on one another. What is the essential problem or conflict? So there's always trouble, there's always conflict in writing, right? In literature, which is why I like The Young and the Restless, because there's always trouble brewing. Where is the climax or the turning point in the play, the point of your highest interest as a viewer? And does the resolution at the end seem appropriate and satisfactory? So compare the end of the play back with the beginning. What major changes have occurred? And in what ways does the opening act of the play or the very first scene of the movie serve the important purpose of exposition? So explaining to you what has already happened. And how is the background information conveyed to you? What important things maybe have already taken place? Does the play contain subplots? So other things going on that maybe aren't quite as important as the main plot, but nevertheless they're connected. So that's plot. Another element of drama, of course, is character. So who is the protagonist? And that's a term that means, if we remember, the main character through whose eyes we're sort of seeing things unfold, or the one with whom we identify maybe the most. And then who's the antagonist? So the character who's in conflict with the protagonist. What is the function of the other major characters in the play? What is the function of the minor characters? So are they just kind of like the BFF, in all the Hallmark movies? And my husband loves Hallmark movies. Oh, he watches them all the time. He loves them. And so there's always a BFF, right? And the BFF will just kind of be this minor character whose job is to just kind of introduce important information about the major character, the protagonist. But the minor character may be sort of a comic relief character, someone who's bringing a little laughter in, or maybe the minor character may be the villain. What methods are used to establish and reveal character? Are the actions of the characters properly motivated, consistent, and plausible? Or do they all of a sudden start doing things and you're like, wait, that doesn't fit with what's happened before? Have you ever watched a television show or a play or a film and you were really into it and then all of a sudden something happened and it's just like, oh man, you guys lost me. I am so done. And that was how I felt when I was watching from some years back that series called Lost on television. And I was way into it and I never missed Lost up until the episode where the invisible force came through the trees. I'm like, y'all, I'm done. That is it. It is so over for me. You did not make this invisible force thing plausible. And so I'm not going to watch anymore. Dialogue is the third element. So how does the dialogue of the characters differ from one another, and how do those differences aid in characterization? And so one character might speak in a very elevated sort of tone, and the other one might kind of talk like he's from East Ridge. And, so how does the dialogue sort of aid us? And what stylistic devices contribute to dialogue? So there may actually be a poetic kind of rhythm and sound to the way in which the characters are speaking, even in a play or a film. There may be repetition of certain phrases, and when they're repeated, again, whether this is fiction or poetry or drama, they're repeated because they're important. So you'll hear in the film that we're watching together, Amistad, you'll hear Cinque make a statement, make a declaration, and he'll make it several times, and it's really important. He'll repeat it. There are puns or wordplay. There's comparison, allusion, where we're alluding to something or someone else. There's imagery, irony, and symbolism. All of those elements and techniques we might see in a play or a film as well. So then there's setting. Again, what is the place, time and place? To what extent does setting aid in characterization, establish and sustain the atmosphere, and influence the plot and the main theme? And then, of course, number 5, theme, which is always what we're all about most of all. What is the play or the film's main theme? What's its underlying meaning? How is it presented? Is it explicitly stated outright, or is it just simply kind of implied? What is the universal value or significance of that play's theme? And then other things you want to consider when you're evaluating drama. Consider the title. Again, what clues is it providing to the main theme or ideas? What connotative meanings do the words have? How is it setting up your expectation? To what extent does the playwright, notice that word, P-L-A-Y-W-R-I-G-H-T, not W-R-I-T-E, W-R-I-G-H-T. That's what we call a writer of plays, a playwright. Make use of conventions like asides, soliloquies, a chorus. Ooh, this one's going to come back and haunt you on that exam. When we think of a chorus, we think of high school chorus, right? But no, in the case of drama, a chorus refers to a group of actors who function as a unit. And it was characteristic of Greek tragedy. So the members of the chorus will share a common identity. And in some plays, they'll participate directly in the action. In others, they're sort of just over on the side of the stage. They're just observing the action and maybe commenting on it. So that's a chorus in drama. And then the 3 unities, those will haunt you, of time, place, and action. What functions do these conventions serve? So if you look at the footnotes, the classical unities, also called the 3 unities, are rules for drama that derive from a misreading of our friend Aristotle's famous piece, Poetic. And in their neoclassical form, here they are. The unity of action that says a play should have one main action that it follows with no or few subplots. Well, no, that's not how most plays are, right? And we know that. We know that there's often more than one action going on in the play. And then that misreading of the unity of place said a play should cover a single physical space should not attempt to compress geography, and should not use the stage to represent more than one place. Well, of course, we know that all the plays we see will have various settings that represent definitely more than one physical place. If you've ever had the privilege of seeing a Broadway play, you'll know that that's true. And then the unity of time, which was a misreading that said the action in a play should take place over no more than 24 hours. Well, we know, of course, that some of the greatest plays ever written take place over years of time. They'll jump around in time. So what happened here is that French scholars read and misinterpreted Aristotle's Poetics, and it led to all this arguing between playwrights who wanted to creatively defy what they thought were the conventions and those who wanted to adhere to them, and the whole thing was a misreading to begin with, ironically. So those are the three unities. You want to identify the major physical actions of the play and explain their significance, and also think about auditory and visual elements. Because now remember, this isn't just something you're reading. You're seeing it and you're hearing it if it's a play or a film. And then what help do the stage directions provide? So you'll see stage directions when you actually read a play that will say, so-and-so enters from stage left looking distressed, or whatever. So that's the elements of drama. And now let's take a moment to look at the paper 3 assignment sheet. So if you go back to content and you go straight to major paper assignments and related materials and click on paper 3 assignment sheet, that's where you'll find it. It is a drama analysis. So we're analyzing, breaking down a piece of drama. So for this third and final major paper in the class, you'll again write a 3 to 4 page literary analysis of the film version of Amistad, and this is the one that we're all watching together. So a minimum, again, of 3 full pages, or I deduct points. You can certainly go over that. Try not to go too much over 4 pages, but you can certainly go over it. Just do not be under it. And note that you can quote from Alex Pate's novel, which we're also reading as we're watching the film version of Amistad. And it actually is based on the screenplay of Amistad. I tried to find the actual screenplay, but couldn't find a version that we could access. Note that Alex Pate's first name is spelled Alexs, right? And so note that in your writing, because your autocorrect feature will probably change that either to Alex or Alexis. And the name is spelled Alexs. Very odd spelling. So make sure to correct it in your writing of paper 3 if you use Alex Pate's name. So here are the options that you'll choose from. So if you chose option 1, you would carefully and thoughtfully analyze a character or characters from Amistad and or from Pate's novel. And of course, they're the same characters. So remember to consider the character's own words and actions. This is very much like paper 1 with a character analysis if you choose this option. So you're going to tell us about this person. You're going to analyze this person. His or her words or actions. What other characters say about him or her? And the character's physical description. How does the character look on the screen? And how is the character described in the novel? Also remember, character always connects to and reveals theme. So how does the character you're looking at contribute to the work's overall theme and reveal it? And then what do the film critics have to say about their analysis of the character that you've chosen? How does the character reveal or provoke ideas of enslavement? So you're going to refer to the elements of drama, and also there's another document that we're going to read a bit later, how to analyze a film, which will be very helpful there. But at some point in your paper, you want to link the character you're looking at in option 1 to the ideas we've talked about, human enslavement. And then here's the second option that you might choose. Carefully and thoughtfully analyze the main and secondary themes in Amistad. So think about how all the elements of drama are coming together to reveal these themes. So rather than character revealing theme, you're thinking about how setting and plot and character, rising, falling action, dialogue, irony, techniques used, all those things that we've talked about are working together to point to the theme or underlying themes. There can be more than one. And again, what do the film critics have to say about their analysis of theme in this film? Again, you can certainly quote from Pate to cement your ideas about Amistad. You can quote from the film. And then the third option is to compare and contrast the film version of Amistad with one other text that we've read this semester. And it can be a text from our fiction or poetry units, any other one that we've read together. What similarities do they share? What differences are you noticing? Be sure to consider all of the elements of drama and film that we're discussing together and refer to that, the elements of drama, and how to analyze the film documents or those documents to assist you in your writing. So again, what do the film critics have to say about their own analysis of each of these pieces? And you may quote from Pate to obviously again express or underscore ideas about Amistad. So here are the important dates. Monday, the 19th of April, will be our idea workshop day for paper 3, our very last one of the semester. And you'll go to assignments up at the top of our Brightspace page and look for idea worksheet for paper 3. You'll follow the instructions there and upload before 11:59 p.m. on the 19th. And then on Wednesday, the 21st of April, that will be our self-review day for paper 3. So just like the peer review with a rough draft and the pre-writing day for papers 1 and 2, this self-review will be critical to the process. So before 11:59 p.m. on Wednesday, the 21st, you want to complete the self-review. And you'll find it by going to our discussions and looking for the week 14 self-review for paper 3 discussion board. And remember, 10 points are deducted from your paper 3 grade if you do not submit your draft there. This part of the process will motivate you and direct you to look at a past paper, and I'm going to open those up for you to see my comments on your past graded papers, and to think about the errors you made, and then to enact my suggestions into your draft of paper 3 so that you don't repeat those same kinds of errors. And then on Monday, the 26th of April, that's when the final draft of paper 3 is due. So after you've completed your self-review, you submit that final draft of paper 3 no later than 11:59 p.m. And remember that policy about major papers. 10 points are deducted from your paper 3 grade for every calendar day that it is late, including the day that it is due and weekends, and papers aren't accepted after 5 days. So specifics, again, 3 to 4 pages in length, typed, obviously double-spaced, Times New Roman 12-point font, standard margins. And so for this assignment, you're going to document your main source, the film version of Amistad, and or Pate's novel version of Amistad. And obviously, if you choose option 3, you'll document the film and or the novel and the text with which you're comparing it to. So, and then on top of that, you need 2 secondary sources. So that means you need to incorporate quotations and or paraphrases. Well, you have to have quotations in the body of your paper, citing them. And also you have to have a separate works cited page, all done in MLA formatting. If you don't have that, your paper may not pass. It probably won't. So make sure. It also means you must find 2 secondary sources, and you want to look for 2 different versions of a critical analysis from an expert on your chosen element above. So character, theme, compare contrast between Amistad and another text we've read. And so note that you may use the following. If you find a credible interview with the film's director, Steven Spielberg, or with Alex Pate, or with any of the actors, you could use that as a source. If you find biographical information on the author-director, or historical information regarding enslavement that connects to the film. Well, Amistad is based on a true story. So the characters like Cinque and Roger Baldwin and those folks, President Adams, really lived. And you may find actual historical information about the real people that definitely connect to this film. I've had students who've written wonderful papers like that. And you can locate these critical articles online through our Pellissippi Library databases or through other credible means. But remember, you can use those secondary sources to support your claim. That's generally what you would do. But you could also disagree with those sources as long as you find textual evidence within the play or the film. Your goal in this paper is to write a careful analysis of one of the noted elements above as it relates to Amistad. You're attempting to explain how one of the following is working in the film to understand or to help further our understanding of overall meaning. So character, theme, or compare contrast. And you should choose as your two secondary sources. Again, critical evaluations from professional literary and or film drama critics. So you might find a film critic who critiqued this film when it came out. Credible interviews, biographical information, historical information. You want to notice each technique that the writer or the director has used. And again, those elements of drama and how to analyze the film documents will be very helpful. So here are the questions you should be asking yourself as you're working. Have I selected one of the three options listed above, and on top of that source, have I found two other sources to support my claims? Have I written a compelling thesis statement? So my thesis needs to say something more meaningful than the film Amistad has two main themes. Well, duh, right? Tell us what they are. Have I checked my topic sentences, the first sentence in each paragraph, to make sure I'm making points of analysis rather than just summarizing what happened in the film? This is not a summary, right, of a plot. No. This is an analysis that needs to dig more deeply. Does my intro have a hook? So do I have a beginning sentence that makes my reader want to keep reading? And have I included the following information in my very first introductory paragraph? The title of this work. Now remember, film titles are always italicized because they are large works. Novel titles are always italicized because they're bigger works, right? Do I have the full name of the work, the full name of the playwright or author, director, the reason that the film matters, and my thesis at the very end of paragraph 1? I just talked about number 5. Number 6, have I remembered to refer to the playwright and or the author, director by last name only after introducing him or her fully in my intro? So it's not going to be my good buddy Steven Spielberg or Mr. Spielberg or Steve or Stevie. It's going to be Spielberg, right? It's not going to be Alex or my buddy Alex or Mr. Pate. It's going to be Pate. That is the protocol that makes me sound like an academic writer. Am I using literary present tense? Again, we've talked about this with papers 1 and 2. So, for example, Amistad continues, not continued, to explore the theme, as Cinque struggles, not struggled. Have I used formal academic language? Do I have correct in-text citations, quotations, and paraphrased ideas in MLA formatting? So in parentheses, after a quote from the film, I can use the director's last name, Spielberg, right? I won't have a page number if I'm quoting from the film. If I'm quoting from the novel, I will have a page number. So I would have Pate and the page number. Have I included that works cited page? Have I been careful not to plagiarize? Have I included quotes from the film and from 2 other credible sources? Have I remembered to incorporate quotes smoothly by introducing them with a phrase? So I don't want to drop the quote. Amistad further reveals its recurring theme of justice through Cinque's thought-provoking questions regarding the core principles of American values, quote, what kind of place is this where you almost mean what you say, where laws almost work? How can you live like that, unquote? and then Spielberg in parentheses and period, because this is a quote from the film. Now, let me ask you this. What if that colon after the words American values became a period? What would happen then to that quote? It would become a dropped quote, because then it would appear all by itself as a sentence, and I would get serious points deducted from my paper grade. So I can use the colon method because my sentence before that quote is a complete sentence. It's an independent clause. If my phrasing before the quote is not a complete sentence, I'll have to put a comma there. But if I put a period there right before that quote, I've dropped the quote. Notice that my period only comes after my in-text citation, after the last parenthesis, after the word Spielberg. But notice that I have a question mark that comes inside the quotation. How can you live like that? Question mark, quotation mark, right? So the rule is I never ever put a period or a comma there at the end of that quotation. Ever, ever, when I'm citing it. But if the original quote ended in a question mark or an exclamation point, then I do include it there. But I must still put my period after my in-text citation, because that's where my sentence ends. Do I have a fully developed intro, body, and conclusion? Have I answered the question, so what, who cares? Why does Amistad matter? Why is it important for us to see this film? Have I included an analysis of the film's language, rhythm, tone, style, if applicable, and any other important techniques that may relate to the option that I'm choosing? So now I give you examples of a possible thesis and game plan for each option. And here's the first one where you're writing about character. In Steven Spielberg's moving film Amistad, the character of Cinque represents the courage and determination of a man who values freedom over all else. Through a careful analysis of Cinque's words and actions, along with other characters' reactions to him, one may see the way in which he reveals the director's overarching theme of the inner struggle between a justifiable need for self-defense and the resulting moral consequences such action may cause for others. Decades later, this character continues to allow audiences to relate to him in a genuinely sensitive manner. So, this thesis is about the idea that Cinque feels that he must defend himself and his people and take over the ship, the Amistad. However, later on, he kind of has an inner struggle about the moral consequences that also may cause. So, he's kind of back and forth in a sense. And he doesn't want to think of himself as a hero. He's kind of conflicted about how to think of himself, even though he truly is a hero. So for a thesis of that kind, you would need to carefully consider his character. What do the dialogues he has tell us about who he is? How do his actions reveal his nature? What do the responses and reactions of the other characters tell us about him? And consider how his character relates to theme and reveals theme. What consequences occur when he chooses to lead an uprising aboard the ship? What would have happened if he had not done that? And when he later rises up at the prison in America, what are the consequences of that? Are his actions justified? How does this inner conflict and choice reveal who he really is? And then option 2. Director Steven Spielberg explores several interlocking themes in his iconic film version of the novel by the same name, Amistad. Among them, the jarring truth of human enslavement, the pain of its consequences, and the trauma of racial prejudice. Each of these themes reveals a raw, emotionally gripping drama that continues to reach audiences around the globe. So to create an effective paper from this kind of thesis, you need to demonstrate through quotes and paraphrases from both the film and the two sources, in addition, that you focus on, how the themes are playing out through means of character, setting, plot, all of the elements, right? What larger meanings and implications is this play and film setting forth regarding the idea of slavery, its wide-reaching consequences, and the effects of racial prejudice on the human psyche? Look at what the effects are on, Cinque and his fellow slaves, as well as on all the other people. And then finally, option 3, While many are aware that slavery existed in our nation's history, some may still not grasp two important facts. Number one, the Atlantic slave trade was a brutal, horrific atrocity that victimized millions of innocent people with violence beyond imagination. And number two, modern day human beings are often enslaved in a different but equally life altering way through the powerful force of social media. Through a thoughtful comparison of the film version of director Steven Spielberg's Amistad and the poem The Facebook Sonnet by Sherman Alexie, one may see that both works set forth a common theme: the beliefs and values, or lack thereof, presented by a society in power can enslave masses of people, whether physically or mentally. So here we have a really interesting paper that a student wrote from a past class comparing the Atlantic slave trade with a piece that talks about a modern day version of being enslaved to social media. And this really turned out to be an interesting paper. So to write a compelling essay from that kind of thesis, you've got to forge a relationship between these two works. So you're going to look for important commonalities and important differences. So first think about the similarities and be specific. What do the characters' actions, words, and reactions share in common? What elements might make the plots of both of these works similar? What common themes are binding them together? And then you should also spend some time demonstrating how the two works differ. So how exactly, for example, do stories of enslavement from two vastly different times and parts of the world contrast from each other? And finally, give your readers sort of the bottom takeaway. So how does the common theme that a society's beliefs and values, or in the case of slavery and social media taking over our lives, the lack of those beliefs and values, enslave people, whether physically or mentally? How is that manifesting in both works? And there's a little blurb there at the end about the Tennessee Board of Regents student learning outcomes that are being evaluated in this paper. There's a separate sheet for details about that you'll find also under major paper assignments and related materials if you just happen to be interested in the goals there that the TBR sets for us. So thank you so very much for your patience, and best of luck to you as we approach paper 3.